Yeah.
If that makes sense, which is why even when we sat down, part of the conversation was, can we assume that the world was one piece of land and then broke away? And in that, maybe the center of that world was Ethiopia, India. And as the world broke apart, we thought it was different places, and it's one place. And that's why when you study religious scriptures, it almost sounds like they come from the same place.
Yeah, because it's true. Actually, the world is one big culture as you go back. And if you look at it carefully, you have out there's links to
Sure.
everything. It's just the branding now. Once you got these sovereign nations,
Sure.
and then people claim certain things for certain parts of the world. So I want to bring that universality to the.
So how I'd want to win black people is to be like, we all agree that life started in Africa, in inverted commas. And life started with black people. The original man was black. So if we're going to say there are belief systems, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, whatever, and we're going to say this one is the oldest, it only holds that it was black.
Yeah.
It was black. So you need to go back to what was yours.
Yes.
Yes, it got diluted because people moved, and in their moving, whether it's the climate, weather, interacting with other tribes or whatever, those people started looking like it was theirs, but it was always yours. In the same way, Buddhism is Indian, but we all believe Buddhism is Chinese.
Yes.
But it's not, because
Yeah, they're the ones who then captured it and marketed it.
sure, so it looks like it's theirs.
Theirs, yeah.
And even the idea of Christianity to be like, Jesus is your person. He was black. People hijacked it, and we're telling you, go back and believe in Christ. And you're like, believe in Ungamla. It was not Ungamla. They fucked it up. Read the scriptures and then pick out the parts where they included them to oppress or darky. Those ones were sneaky. And then see the ones that actually speak to your soul, to be like, love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, you're like, this sounds like Ubuntu.
Yes.
You're like, exactly. So it was yours.
It is. In fact, Ubuntu, respect for yourself, your environment, elders, young, women, nature, the controllers of the universe, the supreme. Ubuntu lovo. Meaning start from self, know the self first, and then you can navigate the whole thing. Manjitine, we're starting from page 35. And we've already been set up how to move. And therefore, we're tripping up because we're thinking that everything is from outside. When this is your knowledge, knowledge belongs to you.
How do you break the psychology of race in belief systems, where you're saying belief systems, universal principles, old learnings don't have a race attached to them? Human beings at some point used the race as a differentiator. It's like, we're all black, you're light-skinned, I'm dark, and someone came to tell us that light-skinned blacks are rich, dark-skinned are meant to be slaves. And then we carried that narrative. Meanwhile, we're all from the same place. So how do you break the racial construct and tell people, forget that your guide that's teaching you is white. Forget that they are Chinese, and be like, nisphathele ongamla. And you're like, it is the principles. Someone taught you to look at the outer, and that's not important.
You can give people like practical, simple examples. Take, for example, electricity. Electricity will power a fridge, a TV, a microwave, whatever it is.
Sure.
So externally, these things are different. Microwave, stove, fridge. But the power supply is the same. So also these bodies are like machines. Different colors, different shapes. But the life force is a spiritual spark. Another thing is, if you go on the roads, you get to the traffic lights, it's Tinama robot.
Sure.
There, you ask, what color is the light? People will say, what, green, yellow, red. But actually, that is not the case. The light is always clear. But when it's seen through the conditioning of green, yellow, and red, then it looks red, green, and yellow. So we are looking at ourselves on the bodily concept of life. We are missing the point that we're the spiritual spark. This is a car that I'm riding. And so when people don't hear enough about their spiritual identity, they hold on to the bodily identity. And lapo, so many differences. So you can divide and split people up according to many
Sure.
divisions, class, race, shade of skin, like colorism is such a big thing.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Height. Oh,
Isn't it? Sometimes you cannot change that. You already have this body. Now, if you rate who I am based on what you see, if, for example, I'm wearing orange today, so am I the orange guy? What if tomorrow I come through with a black suit?
then you're a sellout.
So, no, he's now Mr. Suit. No. Who is that man and what are his ideas? That's a little higher. If we meet people in terms of what's their worldview, what's their guiding wisdom, then we can get more out of people. But if we look at them just based on the machine that they're riding in, then Mr. Toyota doesn't get enough airtime than Mr. Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah. Savia Sachi, the monk.
Xavier the monk, yes, thank you.
Busiso. I'm honored to sit with you again. I had an idea of how important the work you're doing is. I had an idea that you are unique. We spoke about the many times we were supposed to sit and how the universe decided at the right time for us to sit. I was not aware of how influential you were until we sat and I saw our sit down traveling across the world to people who were not seeing you from the body and the machine, that was seeing the real you, to the glow and the teachings. And it's almost like I've uncovered a hidden world, but it's vast. And you've said it's bigger than I think. And I do hope that as we sit on these platforms, I can contribute to the light that you are bringing, because I believe that's what you're bringing to the world more than anything. There have been evil people over centuries, if not millennia, who have been agents of darkness in the world because it suits agendas. And people like you are bringing light. And the light you bring is so enticing to me because, number one, you represent belief systems that are very, very old, which I'd like to think are closer to truth. It's like unprocessed foods. And number two, you are not here to bash anyone. That's always refreshing, where it's like, oh, I'm not here to speak ill of these people or those people. I'm here to just speak and to spread light. If you want more light, I will give you. If you don't want light, that's okay. And whatever you believe in, I can show you light in already what you believe in. And if there's darkness in what you believe in, I unfortunately don't know what's going on, and that's on you. So Mfethu, thank you so much for coming back. I hope you've been good. I don't know if you want to touch on briefly where you've been, maybe in the world and the work you've been doing, and also just your thoughts on the last sit down we had and the reception. They were literally making videos about it in India and analyzing it in their own indigenous languages. That sit down.
Yeah, thanks, Pen. I mean, I was glad that finally we got to sit, because I would say I saw the same thing in you, hearing you questioning and speaking your mind and allowing people of different views, different mindsets, backgrounds, an opportunity to engage. So I thought this is a man that is needed, who can allow people to meet with different ideas, and he's educating the country. So meeting you, I thought, was ordained. It was needed. I just came back from North America. I was in New York for some time, Atlanta. I was in Florida. I do this travel to share this wisdom. And as you've rightly pointed out, that universal issues are there. And if we go a little deeper, then we find that there's greater unity in this diversity. There's a lot of focusing on the diversity, which is always wonderful, because if you have a bouquet of flowers, the variety of flowers make the bouquet look more beautiful.
Yeah.
But still, these are flowers, and still we want to appreciate beauty. So the message is, what is the highest beauty that we are all attracted to, in different ways that we're attracted to it? And I want to just be available to interact, because this Vedic knowledge, is like an ocean of wisdom. Medicine, architecture, astrology, astronomy, math, spirituality, the metaphysics, yoga. It's the wealth that even in Africa we are yearning for. We've been somehow given a shiny object to chase, but it doesn't really enrich us. It just enslaves us. So, yeah, I'm glad, Guti, I'm back. And in fact, that sit down also showed me how much more we need to do this type of work. And I left here after speaking to you, and I was glad that you also sort of understood that, yes, we should do this and we should do this more. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, bro. I've got so many notes. I don't think we'll be able to go through them, and it's okay. What's more important, I think, is the notes that you gave me for us to go through. But before we do, I want to read a little profile from you and then give a little bit of just a small piece of history. And then I'd like you to imagine you are introducing yourself to virgin ears and explain who you are, what you do, why you're the orange man today, why you've got weird things on your face, and why you look like you've been sent by Indian gurus to come colonize us. Sabyasachi is a practitioner of Bhagavad Gita. It's correct?
Yeah.
This is called Krishna consciousness. It's a polymorphic monotheism that recognizes all living beings as separate individual parts of the Supreme Person, Krishna or God. As a monk, his duties are to educate, inspire, and demonstrate the practical application of the spiritual wisdom. The order he follows is the branch established worldwide by Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada, yes.
So for context, for people that don't know, because, we're in Africa, we're in South Africa. In South Africa, last I checked, was 80% Christian. Christianity is of the Abrahamic faiths, which came from Father Abraham. Some people, I realize, don't even know that. So Father Abraham said God spoke to him, and the oldest one became Judaism,
Yes.
which I believe even Jesus Christ fell under Judaism. Judaism is over 3,500 years old. What would follow is this young boy who said he is the Son of God, born of a virgin mother, and he went and inspired many people, known as Jesus Christ. That is now over 2,000 years old. Later on, we'd have someone who personified an example of what God should be. God in Arabic being Allah, and that became Prophet Muhammad. And that becomes 1,400 years old, and that's Islam. Those are the Abrahamic faiths. They're very popular. There have been some branch-offs, Rastafarianism. The Christian faith itself has got Protestant, Lutheran, Anglican, of which Anglican I think is English, Lutheran is German, all almost speaking the same language. Then we get to this belief system called Hinduism or Shinduism, or from the Indus River, what we know as India. That goes further beyond, and from a documentation perspective, becomes the oldest documented belief system. And when you study it, or begin studying it, of which hopefully you'll explain what Vedas are, etc., you start looking at Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and you're like, even things like studying Egyptian philosophies, you're like, Hinduism has covered all of these things, and it looks like people borrowed certain stories. I'm going to use borrowed and not stolen. Some would use stolen. Have borrowed.
Yes, it's a better term.
Yeah, Buddhism as well, as a young guy from India, not even from China, who came from a well-off family, decided to go on a journey of traveling the world and finding wisdom and light, etc., who'd gone to inspire the world and have his own thing as well. So I just wanted to give that background. And before you introduce yourself, if you can explain what polymorphic monotheism is. It's a
Yes.
Bhagavad Gita, Krishna consciousness, it's a polymorphic monotheism that recognizes all living beings as separate individual parts of the Supreme Person, Krishna or God. Please, can you answer that? And then please tell us who you are and the work you do.
Polymorphic monotheism. So monotheism is understood a belief in God, one God.
Mono,
Mono,
one
one.
God.
So then polymorphic would mean that one God, he morphs or he expands, takes on different forms to achieve different objectives. So it is one God, one source of everything and everyone,
Yeah.
but who has innumerable forms to achieve different objectives.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were born Spusiso, you were Spusiso, and somewhere along your path, you found something. If you can briefly explain what it is that you found, which I believe you found during your university years.
Yes, it is called Krishna consciousness. Krishna means the all attractive person. It's a name for God. God is all attractive. So, how to always be conscious of God, how to always remember God, never forget Him. So, that is the.
Did you say him?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's an understanding, of course, of divine, masculine, and feminine. So, because we're doing ABC, you were saying we don't want to go too deep yet.
And scare people.
Yes.
Sure.
So we can understand that God is actually the one masculine, meaning He is the source of everything. Everything is His energy, therefore feminine. Just to keep it there.
Is that the simple form?
The simple form would be-
Masculine, he has energy which is feminine.
Yes. Masculine is the owner of energy, and then feminine is the energy, which is meant for the
Okay.
owner of the energy. Yes. So Krishna consciousness then is based on the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a 5,000-year-old text, which is accepted by practically all Hindus as their ABC scripture. It was brought over by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in 1965 in America. So he translated these literatures are in the language called Sanskrit, which is the oldest language on the planet.
Yeah.
So he gave translations into English, and then he started to make disciples in America and the US. He came to South Africa in 75. Actually,
1975.
1975, yeah. He spoke at Wits, yeah, at the Great Hall. So, young guy, influenced by Rastafarianism, walking campus, sees a poster, Bhakti Yoga Society. We're interested in yoga because we're getting high and we want knowledge. So we thought, lava.
You were led by Insang or the Holy Herb.
Yeah, Bob Marley is my first guru.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave me that political consciousness, social consciousness, God consciousness.
And spreading love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like that, I knew I couldn't live like him. His smoking was for a real mission. Mine wasn't. It was just having a good old time with friends, but slowing me down in many ways.
Yeah.
So, when I met the monks at the campus, my question to them was, how does this solve all problems? Because their topic was a cure for all diseases. So one of the guys I spoke to, he said, this Krishna consciousness means all problems solved, all questions answered. And I was like, that's what I've been looking for. So I wanted to put it to the test. So this is Arts Campus, Pretoria Tech, 2002. And having spoken to them, I thought I'd have to join them because I was on campus solving for X, doing engineering math. And I was thinking, who made all these equations?
Yeah.
I want to solve my actual problems, which at that time I understood. The main problem is that I am a spiritual being trapped in a material body. Therefore, everything I'm trying to acquire as a resident of this body will be taken away by death. So what is it that I can do that death can't take away? So these were the initial thoughts. Another interesting one was one monk spoke about how he had been celibate for 7 years. And I thought, young man, intelligent,
Decent looking.
handsome guy, when's in?
Not
What
having
happened?
sex.
How can you? So I was curious. What is it that he knows? What is it that he experiences that he could forego, you could say, life's number one pleasure?
I never know whether to ask this or not on camera, but I think maybe it's important for people to know. You were inspired by a guy who had been celibate for 7 years as a monk.
Yes.
In your journey, did you ever choose celibacy? Are you celibate? Have you been celibate? And you can choose to answer or not. And if you do answer and the answer is yes, what would be the benefits for the ordinary man?
Yeah, in my life, I've been following celibacy since I began this journey. The benefits of celibacy are that there's a subtle energy or a Shakti or a Tejas, it's called, or Oja, a potency that is found in semen. And when the semen is retained, then it nourishes the body, it nourishes the brain tissues. It allows one to have better memory and some enthusiasm on the spiritual level. And to make 1 drop of semen takes about 40 drops of blood. So the system is worked to produce this sort of element that carries life.
Yo, because it carries life, bro.
Yeah. And so when one is just losing it like that, you find that also in old age, they become senile very quickly. Also, when one wants to discipline the mind and senses, if you've quieted down sex desire, then more than half of your job is done. Because the chief agitator for the mind and senses is sex desire. So there's 2 ways to deal with that. One is that it can be engaged in a committed relationship of marriage. That's why marriage is there, to discipline one's sex desire, one partner. And when it's most disciplined, then sex would be for procreation only. When it's not, then we say at least sex in marriage. Now, when sex is just for shopping on Tinder, then it creates a less strong human being who can be swept away by all sorts of agendas and can be channeled for all sorts of consumerism and just cannot stand for his spiritual rights. So I took the one journey where monastic life and no marriage, and then following celibacy in that format.
How long have you been celibate for?
I started 2002.
It's 22 years.
Yeah. Well, it all started not smooth sailing. So it's been a building up, and I would say, many years later now,
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate that I got on this path. It's really shed so much unnecessary burdens of my life.
There's a movement now in the masculinity circles of semen retention.
Oh, yeah.
And they speak about some of these things you're saying. And more important of everything you're saying is the sexual discipline, because in a hypersexualized world, sex becomes the thing that pulls men and women to do a whole lot of things, spend a whole lot of money, go to places where they generally wouldn't and that aren't in line with their goals and what they're trying to achieve. We've been given a seed of life. Do you never feel a need that at some point you need to plant it somewhere? Is the plan to have lifetime celibacy like a Mother Teresa, or is the plan to at some point maybe just plant just for future? I don't know.
No, the plan is lifetime. But what is the value really of planting 1 or 2 seeds and then your whole existence is limited to that one little household that you're mentoring or trying to take care of? So for a monk, he adopts the whole world as his family. So now you could say, I have children across the world because the seed of knowledge is what is being planted. The seed of devotion is being planted and being watered and sheltered by guiding people, inspiring them, and being there for them throughout the difficulties of life. So we don't expect people to become monks like this, and this is not what I'm advocating, because it is a highly specialized field. 1%, 2% maybe can do it. But we are advocating that understand how sex desire is chaining you to a life that you may not really desire, but you're just compelled because we want to be sexually desirable. So then we are trying to get all sorts of things to fit that category. I want to stress that higher than sex desire is actually love. And love is not dependent on physical. In fact, when one starts to move off the physical, you're attracted to someone intellectually. That's an even stronger and sweeter. And then spiritually, then sex then just becomes a minor detail of a deeper relationship. And ultimately, we want a relationship with God.
You pointed up. God is up?
It's just an easy way to understand that the highest person is higher than us.
Yeah.
But in terms of God, He's present in everything. That is one level. He's present in every atom. And then also He's present in everyone's heart as a friend, as a witness, as a guide. Ultimately, in these polymorphic, the many states, the many forms that He's taken, He's present as a personality in the spiritual planets.
The Christians have the Bible, the Muslims have the Quran, the Jews have the Torah. You've got the writings of Buddha, Ron Hubbard and Scientology, etc., etc. What do Hindus have, and what is the base of that?
So in Hinduism, you could say the Vedas are the base of a big body of knowledge, over hundreds of thousands of texts. But then there are different lines of that, like, say, the Puranas is one. There's the Itihasas, means the histories. You find books like Mahabharata, Ramayana. In the Puranas, you find Bhagavat Purana. It's called Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the essence of that line. Then you will find books on medicine, on how to construct temples, on how to keep health, Ayurveda, Vastu, which is known as Feng Shui. But the essence of this is called Gita Upanishad line. So this Bhagavad Gita, for anyone who wants to explore Hinduism, find Bhagavad Gita.
Which is what you push.
That's where I am focused, Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita as it is, I say, because that Bhagavad Gita is what has created persons like me worldwide. It was translated by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Yeah. So many scriptures. So in Hinduism, you could say 4 main schools are there. It's called Vaishnavas, followers of Vishnu. Then there is Shaivites, followers of Shiva. Then there's Shaktas, followers of Durga, or the mother. And then there is Smartas, who are followers of a mixture of what is there in Vaishnavism, in Shaivism, and Shaktaism. So that's now taking us a little broad.
Yeah.
I want to bring it back and say, start at Bhagavad Gita as it is, and then meet someone who's involved in that, and you can explore. The internet is there, but it helps to talk to people who are living that wisdom.
When you speak about Shiva, Vishnu, these are the polymorphic
aspects, yes.
The different versions of the Supreme.
Yes. Like, so Vishnu is the creator aspect.
The creator of everything we see.
Yes, the creator of these universes like that.
But they are not the Supreme. They are just one of the elements of...
So it is the Supreme has taken a form just to focus on creation, is known as Vishnu.
Okay, let's simplify it quickly as you carry on. I'm a man.
All right.
And I take on the role of cooking. Now I'm a cook.
Yes.
I take on the role of gardening. Now I'm a gardener, but I'm the same man. Something like that.
Yes.
The Supreme is the man. Vishnu becomes the part of the man where he's creating.
Yes.
Okay.
And then Shiva is the part of the man that is responsible for the destruction, winding up of the universe.
Destruction.
Yes.
This is not Satan. I know we've touched on this before.
Yeah, no, definitely not Satan.
Satan is not I don't want to say Satan is not a destroyer. The concept of Satan is something separate from
Yes.
the beliefs here.
Yes.
Okay.
At some point, probably get into that, but
Okay.
yeah. So Shiva also is understood to be a transformation of Vishnu, and also Vishnu and Shiva are the same. So I gave example of if you have milk and you add some acid, it turns into yogurt.
Yeah.
But yogurt cannot really be turned back to milk.
Sure.
However, yogurt and milk are all milk products.
Yeah.
So the function is what gives the different gradations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many of these forms are on the level of God.
Yeah.
Then there's also another level called demigods.
Yeah.
So those are now managers of this material universe. We gave an example of the president being God, then the cabinet ministers being the devatas. Minister of Health, of Water, Finance.
Yeah.
They have got different departments. So when people look at Hinduism, especially from the Christian background, we see many gods.
Yeah.
And we think it's a matter of pick and choose whatever you want. But it's not the case. There is the Supreme Personality, Krishna, and he expands. And when he has 4 arms, he's known as Vishnu. It's such a
4 arms is about Goro. Who's the guy with the 4 arms? What is that? What game? Tekken?
That was Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Ukoro.
Yes,
4
4
arms.
arms. Yeah. So you will see when you see these pictures. Yeah, you'll see when there's 4 arms, he's known as Vishnu or Narayan. It's the same person. What happens is that we who are witnessing the Supreme in his different expansions, we then have a liking for a particular form. And
Yeah.
maybe we are born in a tradition that focuses on that form.
Yeah.
And then now we create this fighting. Would you know, no, I'm Shiva is the one. No, Vishnu is the one. No, Brahma is the one. But this knowledge teaches that God or the Supreme Person is inconceivably, simultaneously one and different to everything. So everything is God in the sense that everything is God's energy. At the same time, God is a person and is not his energy. Like, say, now we're speaking Pen. Later, people are listening and they say, Penuel is speaking.
Yeah.
But then someone says, no, that's not Penuel. But then we've captured your voice. So that's your energy to speak.
Yeah.
So it is you. At the same time, it is not you. So God has a person. He has his energies everywhere. God is one person. He morphs into different forms. So
That's a crazy analogy. When people watch this later and I'm speaking, they're like, Penny's speaking. You're like, he's not.
yeah,
But his energy has been captured in some form
Yes.
to represent him. Okay, let's go through some of these notes. Lento yako is so fascinating and so deep. Oh, I had one more question before we carry on. I want to go into the notes that we had. But I've got one question before we go into the notes. Judaism has got the Hebrew language. Islam has got Arabic. Christianity, I don't know if it's got Aramaic,
Yeah, when it's the Ethiopian
Ethiopian.
version, that's Aramaic.
Okay. And then you're bringing up new words, new language, which for the average African, South African person, they've never heard. And to us, it sounds whatever we'd call it Indian. Or you speak Indian now. What language comes with the Vedas? You mentioned Sanskrit, the oldest documented language that we know. What you're speaking, is it Sanskrit, the oldest language, or is it the translation, almost like English, of Indian languages, Tamil, etc., etc.?
So the texts are in Sanskrit.
Okay.
Yes, and
The Vedas.
The Vedas are in Sanskrit. And then over the years, they've been translated into the different dialects or languages of India.
Yeah.
And also into English. So for the validity of the knowledge, generally one speaks and quotes a verse.
Okay.
Yeah. So Sanskrit then is the mother of all the languages on the planet. Linguistically, philosophically, you could research and you can understand that to be the case.
Yeah.
So that then says that the universe actually comes with manuals. Like you buy a game player, comes with a manual to tell you how to use it. So the universe comes with the Vedas to say, what size is this universe? What planetary systems are here? What species of life are here? So what's your science? What's your maths? What's your astrology? What's your medicine? How to build your houses? How to marry? So this body of knowledge of the Vedas contains all departments of knowledge. And it is the heritage of mankind. It's not the heritage of just India. We are just experiencing this knowledge because it was preserved in the part of the world called India. And sometimes there's that mistake also from people of India, where they may see someone like myself and then assume that just because they are born in India, therefore they know this more.
Sure.
Well, it just means they've heard about it growing up.
Yeah.
But you have to enter the laboratory and put yourself through these sciences to understand them and to live them.
A bit of general knowledge. So some people know India as Bharat or Hindustan, and I think it might have been Prime Minister Modi who spoke about the idea of potentially renaming it Bharat. The name India comes from the Indus River, is my understanding, or the Sindhu River, depending on who you ask. The Persians said Hindu or Shindu, and the Greeks removed the H and then added another I to make it India, from my understanding. These are things that before we sat down was some of the stuff that came up for research, just the history of the world.
In fact, just on that, this Bharat has always been there in the constitution of India because it's the name of the planet from way back.
Which planet?
This earth planet that we're in.
Known as Bharat.
Bharatvarsha. So again, showing that this body of knowledge was for the planet. It wasn't just for the people of geographical India today.
Yeah. There was something I wanted to ask. Who wrote the Vedas? And are you aware if it's an ongoing exercise or if it stopped at some point? Because I've asked Christian theologians who claim to know, where I ask who wrote the Bible, and they speak about some of the disciples and the prophets. And I asked them, if I feel that God sent me as a prophet to write, can I not write my own gospel and add it? And they're like, no. I'm like, but that means at some point you guys decided to close the taps and we cannot add to that knowledge anymore. So do you know who wrote the Vedas? And if you're saying that it's a manual for the world, did the manual get finished at some point, or can we add onto it and expand on the Vedas, which you're saying are hundreds of thousands of texts?
The Vedas are said to be literally the breathing of the Supreme.
Yeah.
And where he can give wisdom in so many ways.
Yeah.
So previously, it were preserved orally. So people would become disciples of a teacher who has learned this knowledge through hearing, and they would recite these verses and pass them on. So over 5,000 years ago, another expansion of Krishna known as Vyasadeva, you could say he's a literary incarnation, empowered to then take that oral knowledge, put it down.
Yeah.
Yes. So Vyasadeva, Veda Vyas is known.
Those who have finished.
So those were given, but then what happens, there is a line of two ways. There's, Smriti means knowledge which is being remembered.
Okay.
So we're recalling what's already been written. But then there's also a line of Shruti, where different sages who are on the path, they get revelation and they speak upon the knowledge that's already written in the Vedas, and they make it applicable and relevant to the times and the places where they are. So it's actually encouraged in this culture that we must write our realizations. So when one has applied himself to this knowledge, you will uncover some part of the angle of reality. And if it is helpful to others, put it down so that the knowledge is not a dead culture, it's a living culture.
Yeah.
It's a living knowledge.
Would you like me to go through the whole list or one at a time? Go through the whole, because then you can pick what's most important. The discussion points you sent me, how we are slaves and who the masters are, very important. The 4 pillars of freedom and bondage, unpacking the matrix of illusion, why we need the Vedas, what are the implications of karma, and the power mantras.
Yes. So slavery.
Yeah.
Slavery is going on. The slave is not just the man on the plantation with a man whipping him, but now we as souls have become slaves to our senses. See, once one is addicted to some sense stimulation, then even without their conscious consent, when that stimulation comes up, we just follow. So one who has not controlled his mind and senses becomes a slave of his senses. That is why we are buying so many things that we don't need.
Yeah.
And it's understood how we get controlled by a lot of marketing towards our particular carnal tastes. So the real freedom that one really desperately needs is freedom from the senses. Generally, people want freedom for the senses. Everyone's, hey, we're doing whatever we want. Hey.
Freedom from the senses and not for the senses.
Not for the senses.
I can't wait to be free so I can indulge, touch, smell, taste. And you're saying, be free of those things.
Be free from, yes, you should be in charge of which senses you are using. These are your tools. Not that they dictate to you where you should go, what you should do. So, sense slavery means that when our senses are not engaged in the mission of the soul. I can give an example. If you take, say, 5 horses, we call them the 5 senses. What do we have? Taste, smell.
Taste, touch, smell.
Hearing and vocal.
Okay.
So these are 5 horses. So they are meant to be controlled by the reins. And the reins would be the mind. And then the mind is meant to be controlled by the intelligence. The intelligence will be the man sitting on the horse. And then who is in the carriage? There should be us, the soul. So if those senses are just running this way, that way, the mind is not reining them in because it doesn't have enough intellect to make decisions, discriminate. Then our life is what we are seeing. Sometimes running because of the tongue wants intoxication, sometimes running because the genitals want illicit sex, sometimes running because we are addicted to gambling, sometimes running because we are addicted to what we want to eat. So we want to bring the system in alignment for the mission of the soul. Yeah. So if people understand actually that that's the bigger slave master, the uncontrolled senses and mind, then they can be able to be free and understand I should rise higher than my base instincts and desires.
You separated the mind and the soul. What is a soul to you?
So the soul is the spiritual spark, the consciousness, the living being, you and I. So we call it spirit soul, or you can just call it spirit. So it would be 4 categories. The spiritual being, then the intelligence, then the mind, then the senses. So that's the machine, the makeup. Almost like the gross body is the hardware of the computer. Then the mind and the intellect are the software subtle matter.
Okay.
And then the user is the soul, the spiritual being.
I'm trying to process what you're saying. Sorry. The mind is a processor. It's an engine. It's a machine. The mind.
Yes, it's like a hard
And you're
drive.
saying the soul is, before you need to process, you need a spark of existence of sorts. Like, maybe let's go back to the car example. We speak about the body. The car needs these things: fuel, water, the senses crave. The mind is the engine that powers the car. And you're saying the soul is the person.
Yes.
The soul would also be the person who created the car, the spark of consciousness for the car to even exist in the first place.
Yes. He's moving matter
Yeah.
and arranging it according to his desires.
Yeah.
That's the living principle.
I've said to people before that we don't quite understand the concept of God and what God is, what God is supposed to be, what God was. And without having answers myself, because I'm constantly on a journey of knowledge, one of the things I do say is there are people that have come onto this earth and convinced others that God is not within. God is outside. And as soon as they convinced people of that, they started explaining who God is, how God works, etc., to a point where you don't trust what you feel within. And then they started playing around with it to a point where they'll say, God doesn't like that. God wants you to do this. And they start controlling your behavior because they convince you that God is not within. Even when you feel in your gut that this is not right, they're like, but we all know God. And you're like, who convinced you that God is external? I'm raising this in the context of what you're saying about the senses. People clearly have realized these senses that we have.
Yes.
And they've sat and they sit and they decide, now that we've kind of seen these senses, we are going to dictate. Don't you want to have a nice house? Don't you want to have a nice car? But sex is very important, which when we speak about senses, sex is probably one of the highest forms of sensual.
It's the highest pleasure.
A close one, which some people have alluded to, is cleaning your ears. There's something that happens when you're cleaning your ears where you're like, hey, what's going on here? So, and you crave that because my research, I think, with doctors has been you're meant to clean your ears once a year, if not just less regularly than people do, which is like every day because people realized this and then they started using that against us where your senses, your body, even things like how regularly you should bath, how regularly you should eat, how regularly maybe you should be working or sleeping, to now influence you are lazy. No, you're not eating enough. No, you're eating too much. And we are not allowed to get in tune. In being free of the senses and not for the senses, my immediate thought goes to yoga, meditation, fasting. Am I on the right path, or do you have any other ways that you can teach us to be, celibacy as one, whether it's, like temporary, like just for the next 3 months as a form of cleanse to regain my power and semen retention as a man? Are there other ways? Is that what it is, or am I missing it completely?
No, you're on the right track. Means that the machine has to be understood. How does it work? How does it influence me, the soul? So yoga is dealing directly with the body, is dealing with breathing, the fitness of the body. And then higher up, meditation is to deal with the mind. So the mind is receiving all this input, and it generally just decides based on what feels good. It goes for that. So when one has then wisdom, it's known as jnana, knowledge, spiritual knowledge, then the knowledge is the discrimination faculty. The mind is going to say, yes, go for it. This is nice. But then the intelligence will kick in and say, it's nice now, but 3 hours later is a problem. It's like weekends. How many weekends, same weekend you've been through for few years, same thing you do, same thing, same result. So fasting you deny the body of all that it wants, then it gives you a chance to see your own mind, to see your thoughts. And it trains you now the muscle of being in charge of your senses. Generally, there's fast foods everywhere, just so that you consume.
They have a lot of sugar, a lot of salt, a lot of foods that are meant to be addictive.
Yeah, MSG in chips. Kids go nuts, So meditation, yoga, fasting, these are tools to help the soul gain control of the mind, the body, and the senses. And these are education points, in fact, that should be dominating our education system. First, I should know, who am I? You ask people, you will ask the viewer. You ask your friends, who are you? Generally, we all give our name.
Yeah.
But then I say, that's your name, but who are you? Oh, man, why are you asking me this? No, I'm a black man. Okay, that's your race. But then who are you? And we make thought experiments sometimes. Okay, point to your head. Let's do with you, Pen. You point to your head.
Here's my head.
You point to your chest.
My chest.
Your right knee.
My right knee is down here.
Point to yourself.
Myself. Is it not all of this?
Which? The head, the shoulders, what?
Is it not everything here?
So that is showing now that when we say point to the self, it's not clear. It's like, it's the whole thing.
Sure.
So in our own life, we also have some idea who we are. Like people say me. They don't generally say me or me. So why they say me, they hit the chest. Or they say, hey, that man broke my heart, or that woman broke my heart. You feel the pain right in the heart. That is because the actual person, the spark of life, you and I, are here in the region of the heart. Therefore, we feel the pain here and we point to ourselves here. So, understanding who we are or what we are needs to be the basis of education, so that whatever else we are doing, is it helping me or is it helping some false idea of who I am? Just like I'm South African, until the body is in the ground, earth to earth, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. So how South African are you then? And right now, I fight for this temporary identity. These days, we can even see that even bodily identity is now changing. There's a lot of dysmorphia around identity. So it's not the permanent identity, it's just a secondary identity. So we have to go first, the primary identity, the soul. Then we build our education systems to give empowerment to the actual spiritual being. And that's why genuine spiritual knowledge never goes viral like that. Because we don't want people to wake up from this matrix of illusion where they think they're the body or they're the mind. Like now, it's such a pain for the soul when that identity that they're trying to hold dear is being attacked or not respected. But if someone understands deeper, then they can tolerate. Like if I'm busy just nje ngiyaknyatha based on ijazz lako. Ijazz, you can always change it. Sasa, you can wear a blue one.
Yeah.
But if you think ule jersey, you're that jersey you're wearing, then you're fighting and you're disturbed. So this body is just a car. So I'm not the Toyota, I'm not the Mercedes, I'm not the BM, but I'm the driver within. So that's the basis of knowledge, spiritual knowledge.
This is me. You know, when you said that, you challenged something to me, because we've spoken about heartbreak and the pain here. And at some point, I think I read a tweet or I saw somewhere that said, it's not heartbreak, it's something happening in your mind. Someone just taught you that it's that everything starts and begins in the mind. And I've come to teach myself or convince myself that consciousness starts in the mind. So everything that exists, what I'm seeing now, starts here. And you're almost arguing that it doesn't. And I'm even imagining a scan of a baby where you focus first on the beating heart. Are you saying our spark doesn't start here but starts here, and this is just the ignition of a car? It starts here and then it dume here,
Yes.
but it starts here. And if it starts here, the next question would be where here? Is it the heart, which is just meant to help pump blood throughout the body, or is it something else completely?
It's a anti-material spark. You could say spirit means it's an anti-material substance. So it's in the area of the heart. The texts explain that the soul is suspended in these airs. You've heard probably of the word prana. These days it's getting prana, like
No.
life air. So there's different types of airs. The body has many systems, right? There's the hydraulic system, the energetic systems, lymphatic systems. So science has also determined that the magnetic field, the strength of around the heart is 5,000 times more than in the brain.
And you said the what?
The magnetic.
Magnetic. I'm thinking the defibrillator, whatever it's called. When they're trying to
Yes.
they don't put it here.
Yes.
They put it here, which would say it's to kickstart the heart or whatever.
So
but it's got energy.
Yes.
Electricity.
So that spark of life, just like electricity we were saying earlier, it can power like a huge set of lights, stadium. It can also power like a cell phone. So it doesn't matter what size body one has, the power of the spiritual spark is magnitudes bigger than the energies we know here. So that spark of life is what is in the area of the heart. And that is the I, because I speak of my mind. That means the mind and me are different. My mind is troubling me. My body is troubling me. So who is the I who can witness his mind? That's the consciousness, that's the spirit, that's you and me. That is that person at the funeral. We say, hey, was she Gogo? Or my father or Hambin. And the children will say, but nangu goke boxing. Who's that in that coffin then? So there we can understand, could know the person who was in that body is no longer in that body. And even though we love them dearly, sometimes you can't even stand that body. People throw up around dead bodies. Even Miss World, you wouldn't want to be in the same room once the person is out, the soul is out, that spirit. So when we don't know that we are that, then we are told that we are the reflection of the self. The mind is just the machine that is processing the desires of the soul.
Have you seen Iron Man? Tony Stark?
Yes, I know of this franchise, yes.
No, as we speak about this place and the heart and the spirituality in between the organs or the spirit spark, I'm thinking of the fact that he created, well, as far as we know, it's fictional. I'm starting to wonder how fictional some of these stories are. The idea of creating an electric gadget of sorts that you can put in that can spark consciousness. And you're also raising the thoughts that I've heard of how human bodies are made up of energy to a point where we can create electricity. Because even depending on the substances you touch, and then you and I touch fingers and there's static electricity, we're actually made of electricity and energy as well, and what that actually really means. You spoke about the matrix of illusion. You spoke about yoga, meditation. There's something you said that disturbed me. The idea of fasting so that you quieten yourself to a point where you can see your own mind. There have been rumors of gurus in India that can go for years without eating. We have what's called breatharians today. I don't know if you've heard that term.
I've heard, yeah.
So a breatharian is an extreme. So obviously you've got your vegetarian that doesn't eat meat. You've got your pescatarian who eats fish. You've got your vegan that doesn't eat meat and doesn't eat any animal product of sorts. And then you've got a breatharian that live on very, very minimal, close to nothing food. and claim that they live on the sun's energy and air, maybe a little bit of water. It sounds a bit scary.
Yeah.
There's one on YouTube, I think, if people ever care to research. Are those forms of insanity consciousness on the level of potentially smoking weed, doing psychedelics, where we see this also in movies, and I think it was in, I don't know if it was Hulk or Doctor Strange. They get to this Buddhist temple and one of the monks hits their spirit out of their bodies so that they look at themselves, so that they can have a certain conversation. Does fasting do that to you, where I think I'm going crazy? We call it hallucinator, ngilambile. And someone else would be like, hold on to that hallucination because it's doing something, and keep quiet and listen.
Yeah, fasting will help with that. But there must be an objective in mind, because you don't want to just now be absorbed in how hungry you are, your growling stomach. Then that's just you. Then a hungry man is an angry man.
I'm hungry. Sure.
So it's like that. I was thinking that one person sent me a video talking about movies. Who's Will Smith and Martin Lawrence have this Bad Boys 4. That Martin Lawrence at some point he's dancing and then it's like heart attack.
Right at the beginning.
He
has a heart attack and he collapses and he becomes unconscious.
He goes out of his body and he can. So, I always appreciate when the mainstream, like that Hollywood, brings out these concepts so people they assimilate them more, because Hollywood most of the time is just propaganda
and distraction.
Yes, keeping us just in the same matrix of illusion. So proper fasting has to be done with the objective of silencing the mind, or one wants to get into prayer, wants to be more meditative, one wants to contemplate some direction in life. So when there's that objective, maybe to please God by minimizing the bodily needs, then one gets realizations that actually I'm not this body. At first it's like, oh, it's such a horrible thing. Personally, I'm not someone who really loves fasting.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'd rather eat minimally and do my work. But Linda, of not eating is just like...
Yeah, that's what people are going to say about sex as well. Angazi ngale celibacy baba, kodwa ngathi ngiganciphisa nje just intshontshe nje.
Yes, and vele see, we are promoting regulating the senses, even regulating sex, because it's like sex is like you have an itch, and then if you keep scratching, it feels good, you want to scratch some more.
Yeah.
But if you keep scratching, the next thing, blood is coming out. So we shouldn't be just fixated in that scratching. And what happened is that people are becoming more and more gross. If you think about it without disturbing people's minds, when you're trying to improve sex, that means you start doing much more and more and more degraded things.
That's
because you're trying to squeeze out.
And that's the danger of porn, that it's turning what was meant to be an act of procreation at its lowest level, has now been turned into an industry of how far can you go to a point where it retards the mind and the senses to want more, to what you're saying about squeezing. We've got BDSM, tying each other up, whips, candle wax, people wanting threesomes, orgies, bestiality, and
yes,
which comes with, to what you're saying, what we call perversions, because you're not satisfied with just this act of, I'm just here to plant a seed.
Yes. That pleasure that is there is just some remuneration for the sacrifice that you will take by procreation. You see, it's not PlayStation. Otherwise, then we have our sisters, going to places and people want to, do such things on them. Dubai, those who know, they know what's that all about. So we don't want to embarrass this divine spark of life. We want to elevate ourselves. So the senses have to be controlled by the mind. So knowledge will help you to understand what is this mind, what are these senses, and how to deal with it. Therefore, this prescription of hearing from a guru, hearing from deep knowledge, and then learning to apply. Like this meditation, mantras, we hear from the Rastas, chant down Babylon.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were freeing people. Bob Marley said, we free our people with music. Yes, we free our people with music. With music, oh music. And I felt that freedom because the words that he spoke to my condition of life and spoke to a higher reality. So human life means we have to hear spiritual sound that allows us to perceive the dimension that's beyond our eyes, beyond our senses. So these Vedic literatures like Bhagavad Gita, they open that portal where now we can aspire for the world of the free, the world of consciousness, the world of love. Currently, because we don't hear about it, we're aspiring for what we are hearing about here. And that's how we remain trapped. So these techniques of meditation, yoga, fasting are all to slowly open us up to understanding I'm a soul, I live in this body. I'm not this body or this mind, but I have to use this body and mind for my spiritual objectives.
Probably one of the most important movies ever created, inspired by a book that was written, The Matrix, with Keanu Reeves, produced by the Wachowskis. So the story of The Matrix, which really confused a lot of people at that time and years later, is the idea that at some point human beings create machines that become artificial intelligence, that become machine learning, that take on their own form of consciousness, so to speak. And what happens is the machines realize that they don't need to be controlled by human beings. They would like to be free, to exist as these machines. And a war ensues between the machines and the humans, and the machines win. But in that war, they end up destroying the source of energy, being the sun. And because they've destroyed that source, they need to find an alternative energy source. And the machines find that in human beings. And in finding that in human beings, they're like, a human being that's just there does not generate enough energy. We need them to be stimulated. And they decided to start farming, breeding human beings in incubators, and then planting this chip where, what do you want in life? Oh, I just want to have a big house and I'll work really hard. I want to get rid of my debt. I want to make my mom proud. I want to move out of Ikasi. I want to travel. Because what happens is that stimulation creates a better energy source. Keanu Reeves' character, what's his name? Agent Smith calls him? Mr. Anderson.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
So he is on a journey of questioning, curiosity. And he does it through the internet. He's a hacker, and other people find him.
You can see how inspired I am. Yo, that movie, 99, I remember. Continue.
Are you good?
That movie is a great gateway for people to go on this discovery. First, Mr. Anderson, Neo, is suspecting, good man, this life we're living, it just seems to be this repetition. I'm not satisfied, I'm not happy. He suspects there must be more. So that inquiry, that spirit is there in us. There must be more to life. I'm doing everything the culture says I must do to be happy. But still, something's missing. So then when that inquiry is there, because we mentioned that God, Krishna is in the heart of everyone. So that super soul, the friend, he starts to bring people, places, books, movies, something to give you some understanding to answer those questions. So Mr. Anderson, they come for him, and he's invited. Then he meets his guru, Morpheus.
Morpheus.
And Morpheus also doesn't just bulldoze him into this is how it is, this is how it is. He gives him a glimpse. And then still he gives him choice. Bhagavad Gita has that same thing. Krishna explains so many things to Arjuna. Then he says, now that you've heard this, deliberate on it and do as you want. So he also gets to choose.
The Christians call it free will.
Yes, there's a bit of, you have to carry your own cross, as they would say. So when he goes in and picks to know reality, so then reality, the matrix, is not exactly as what you'd want. So we see that one other guy, who is he? He says, oh, he's eating a piece of steak. He wants to be taken back. I mean, put me back, make me famous.
I miss the illusion.
Yeah. I know the steak is not real, but
geez, it's delicious.
So like that, knowledge is to inspire people. But ultimately, the responsibility for our own liberation sits on our lap. What are we going to do? So that's why sometimes I encounter this, that when you speak and people are beginning to understand, then they become afraid. This guy, manje. You want to change me. But they are afraid naturally of living in a different way than they used to. And then they're also afraid, where will I get all the things that have been titillating me? So, that film, I would say it should be part of primary school education, high school education.
Dangerous education, though.
Yes. It's for the system, they don't want that type of education.
So the movie doesn't fully explore the real world. They speak about it, they show the machines and whatever. This is what's happening. There are machines, we're fighting them, etc. Now, from a where we are perspective, we're going to assume that that's not the reality. And we're not plugged into some casing somewhere and someone needs to unplug us. We're assuming, right? What does the real world look like? Because for a person that's really enjoying the illusion, this guy is speaking about no sex, fasting, so even my favorite meals. This guy is saying my car is just a material. But then what am I striving for? Because I see you're speaking about freedom, but what are you enjoying? Should you be enjoying? What does it look like? Like, entice me to want to be in the real world so I don't become, I think it's Silas is his name.
Oh yeah, the one who wants to go back.
Yeah, so that I'm not like, I wasted 22 years, baba ngashayi. Yeah, I wasted, ngabe mfethu nengane eziwu-5 namacherry. You are way further on this journey than most of us. And the question is, where you are now, where we are not, of course, what are you seeing? That would be like, when you get here, some of the things you're worried about no longer exist. What are those things so we can maybe strive? Like fasting as an example is, when you run, I don't have that. When you sleep at night, sometimes you sweat or you don't sleep comfortably, you wake up tired. I don't have that. You see, when you have to go work to buy groceries, I don't have to work to buy because I don't need that. So what are the perks of at least where you are in this journey from where you were, which is where we are now?
Yeah, first, I want to just make sure that you understand that it's not a matter of just don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. Because if you're trying to suppress things artificially, like a spring, you can't hold it, it will bounce back up.
Might even be worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are saying that the senses definitely need their objects of enjoyment. If you don't enjoy any sensual stimulation, you're dead.
Okay.
So now we have to understand how to transmute, or how do we shift the focus of our desires to enjoy. The goal of life, first of all, is to enjoy.
That is the goal of life?
That is the goal of life.
To enjoy.
To enjoy. So enjoyment is naturally springing out of the soul. We are pleasure-seeking beings.
We see it in toddlers that have nothing, that are just laughing and smiling.
But now what's happening is you are in a desert and you want to enjoy water, but desert is not the place where water is. That's why we're struggling. We're squeezing out like drops for our tongue, our skin, our eyes, our nose, our genitals. But we are spiritual beings. There's a world where you can understand what the senses are for. So when one starts to use the senses in line with the mission of the Creator in terms of what was real pleasure for the soul, then you're no longer a slave to wasting money. I would say that sometimes people give me money. I have money that people gave me 2 years ago. So if you work for the king, then the property of the king becomes yours. But you are never in illusion that it's yours. So what's happening now, we are thinking we are getting things for ourselves in this world. Therefore, we're fighting and pushing and shoving. But if we understand that this is the property of a common father, then we can learn how to use it for his ends. And then he is happy to bestow more on you because you're not going to abuse it. You're not going to use it to frustrate other children. So in one sense, even biblically, you say Garden of Eden vibes. There's no big job there. There's a whole orchard, whatever Adam and Eve are just eating, and they don't have to be dressed or whatever. Life is simple like that. But we're not there now. So we want to look good. We want to eat good. We want to have partners. We want to have children. How do we do that aligned with the mission of the soul? That's what the scriptures then teach. That's what the real guru will teach you. How you can work and use your money for the mission which is serving greater good. How you can have sacred sex, sacred marriage. How you can enjoy your tongue without eating food that is creating bad karma for you.
Sure.
So education, spiritual education, helps us to know how to utilize things properly. Not that you have to throw things away, not that you do dead break. Today I'm no longer. No, yonke into step by step, gradually.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Africans and the 7th Industrial Revolution.
We're at 7 now.
Yeah, I'll explain.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a note because we spoke about this last time. When I mentioned language and Sanskrit and the iterations of other more modern languages and how people tend to be very negative to new information and new beliefs and new knowledge. And then this is how we win people over to be like, some of the things you already are living. Yoga is a term that comes from this. So it's you're already living it. Karma is something you already know. So you've already gotten a small taste, and we're saying there's more. If you already think yoga sounds great, if you already think karma is a belief that makes sense to you, there's so much more.
Guru,
as an example. With the conversation we're having, would you argue that Africans were closer to consciousness and the real world before colonizers came here? I've sat with Joshua Maponga, and one of the things he said is the idea of a 7th industrial revolution where we go 360 and we come back, which there are small elements of it now.
Yes.
We've gone from creating what was called modern buildings to now eco-friendly. The buildings must be built of renewable products and, have plants, etc. We're speaking about herbal remedies, organic, etc., etc. Africans, even in the movie Avatar, I forgot what they call the blue people there of Pandora. They are living with nature, integrated. They connect even with their animals, with their trees. And then the colonizers, as is always the case, they come in and destroy for their own ends. Were Africans living closer to where we're meant to be going? And if the answer is yes, what do we make of colonial influence? They bring technology, they bring so-called modern electricity, they bring systems, they bring money. Are those tools of progression, or are those elements of evil that we should be fighting? Or is it an act of, is it Shiva, where we are being given these tools to destroy, to recreate?
I would say yes. Ancient Africans and practically around the world were much more in tune with the laws of the universe, more in tune with the laws of God by what we may call a simple agrarian life, a more connected life. Modernity has brought tools that make certain tasks much more easy to achieve.
Yeah.
And it's sort of taken the one village and made it global. So with that type of progress of how to make the material situation livable, then has come the dependency on the machine and the overestimation of our own intellect and ability to harness energy and products, therefore becoming a little bit more proud and godless. Now we are thinking we can create also life. This is spoken there. Then all of a sudden, when we become intoxicated with the pride of manipulating the energy that we found here, we start to become materialistic in that we want to imbue matter with unlimited power. That we are saying from matter, life has come. And we even want to imbue nothing. We say from nothing, all the intricate systems of this world have come about. So we become divorced from the living principle of consciousness because we are no longer seeing the earth. It's even called Mother Earth. It's a living organism, this earth. So materialism or profiteering then looks at Mother Earth as something to exploit. We just dig stuff out because we want to sell. Look at Congo. We all are benefiting from mobile phones, cell phones. We're not really saying, oh, trash them. But if we are actually conscious, if we look, what's the cost of this?
Yeah. Because the DRC is bad, man. The
It's a
coltan
horror.
and maybe
It's a-
lithium and things they get there are what's leading or what's causing the current and ongoing wars.
Oh, wars, the exploiting. So when we become godless and become divorced from the cycle and the time frames of nature, we manifest evil. Evil in this case would be everyone has a right to a quota of what God has created for them. But when we are becoming more materialistic, then we want more than our own quota. Even we want to store away and even toss away so that we can inflate prices and the rest of it. And now we imprison the human being that the energy of life, you have, say, 80 years to live, that should be used to cultivate self-knowledge, higher virtues of love, compassion, tolerance. But now you're at the factory, you're on the highways in traffic, trying to get pieces of paper that are not even tied to any real product. Before it, at least you could get gold.
Sure.
So that's why...
Fiat money.
Fiat money.
Yeah.
So that is why modernity, when it is not tempered with living spiritual wisdom, becomes a detriment of human beings. We are the only species that's destroying its own habitat.
Yeah. And its own species as well.
Yeah.
It's other animals do not rape and murder. Or even if they kill each other, not at the rate that we do.
Yeah.
And mostly they kill for functionality.
Yes.
Either in defense of a territory or for food. Tina will just kill because this one leader doesn't like the other leader, and they send young, impressionable people via propaganda to take each other out.
True. So because that is the distinction between animal and human, is that there's a higher intellectual faculty, but that's meant to investigate what is nature, what is the mind, what are the senses, where do I come from, how can I stop suffering, these things. But that intelligence, when it's used looking at the shadow energy, the temporary energy, creates this world that we're dealing with now.
Joshua Maponga speaks about the koi and the sun and how they lived in the earth. They didn't have to eat and live on much. The way we dressed would be simple, close to nothing. The ability to read stars. Today, with the technology we have, the propaganda, our sleeping patterns, artificial light, we even suppress dreams, which are meant to send messages of us from past lives, maybe, assuming that our soul has lived. And maybe I'll touch on the egg, which is one of my favorite stories now. We suppress those. We're not even encouraged. Where in the 7th Industrial Revolution, how Africans used to live is even in the morning, when you see a child and when you see someone, one of the first things is to ask, what messages did you get in your dreams? We don't have that today. Whether your dreams are your subconscious because you're nervous about an exam you're writing, or you saw some old woman you don't know. It's like you actually know that woman because she's one of your ancestors. Yes. In the way we used to live with the earth, because you said something that triggered me. You said some of the technology that's been brought has made things so much easier. It's a no-brainer. It's like, let's go for this. Because in the absence of a tractor, in the absence of even a plow on the back of a cow, we then have to work the land ourselves. And that's hard. It's punishing for the body. But what that also does is it forces us to engage with nature, touching, feeling. It forces us to exercise. Manis Friedman, who is a rabbi in the Jewish faith, is asked in an interview about money. And he says he's also questioned why we have money and why money is set up the way it is. Because it's like every other animal, when it's hungry, they can climb a tree and get food. They can hunt and get food. But for a human being, they need to go work and then make money and then go buy the food. And it's like, it feels like cruel and
strange
and weird punishment. And the conclusion that he came to was what money has done, and maybe it's some Jewish way of looking at money, is this spirituality that forces us to engage with each other. Because if human beings could get their food from climbing a tree, from hunting something, there would never be a need to interact with other beings anywhere else. And he believes that the reason we go through this process is to engage. I go to a Pakistani shop owner that I would never speak to. I speak to an Indian man. I speak to a white man. If I just had my cows and I was just living off the earth, I would never engage with these people. I'd never want to venture and learn about sushi and pizza and pasta as an example. I'm only raising this reference in the concept of what comes easy through technological advancements, is what they call it, comes at the cost of you are now not exercising by working the land. You're not climbing. You are not out in the harsh sun, which is giving you energy and giving you important vitamins and minerals. We are not engaging with animals and strengthening our immune systems. And in some way, that taking away of the hard struggle has added this layer where we are becoming the weakest versions of ourselves, where some people now have to artificially go to gym, take supplements, boost, to compensate for things that nature had said, you will be strong.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you'll be strong because the way you need to eat, the way you requires you to become strong, but now you've taken that away with this supposed tool, and now you find yourself weak. And if you're not going to gym, you are nothing. If you're not out there in the sun working the land, you have vitamin D deficiency and you're unwell and it comes with illnesses. If you are not catching animals, playing with animals, playing in the dirt, your immune system becomes weak to a point where if certain viruses, illnesses come in, you could literally die. Where the next person exposed to the same illnesses, it doesn't do anything to them because they're strong. So it triggered that for me.
I was thinking that balance is needed, because generally then people look at the extremes, like such a conversation. So are you trying to tell us that now we have to be burned by the sun and we must... No, we are where we are today So we have to work with real knowledge to temper our lives and move them to a more natural existence. But more than that, there's no one who will survive this body. So there's a more pressing mission that when I'm kicked out of the body I live in now, where to next? So our education doesn't prepare us. What's my next housing? What type of body? What planet will I be after this body dies? So instead, we are preparing, yes, life insurance for those who will stay behind alive, what they'll do. But here there is afterlife insurance, where you develop your consciousness and your meditations focus, you understand the spiritual position that you're going to, that even when death comes, you're glad that you're living behind the machine that is old, is no longer serving its purpose, because you know what you'll be doing next. You're now living a life of service, and you know the Supreme whom you are serving, and you are looking forward to serving in closer proximity. So fear even of death is there because we don't know what is next.
Yeah.
And so because we don't want to confront this inevitability of the body dying, we absorb ourselves in the temporary. And we are afraid because we know definitely it will divorce us, all of it.
Buddhism believes in reincarnation. Your belief system believes in what? Where do we come from? Where are we going? What happens after this machine we've been given expires?
The soul being eternal, it's accepting a body and giving up bodies. So therefore, reincarnation is there. However, we're trying to stop the cycle of repeated birth and death. We want to come out of repeating the process. I'm sure people know this. When we were growing up, right? We used to eat chappies. And as kids, you chew that stuff and you stick it under the desk. Because tomorrow also... I mean, now when you think about it as an adult, yeah, how silly. Think of even sugar cane.
Yeah.
Sugar is so nice. You eat the thing and you really try to get it and you throw that. Imagine tomorrow they say, hey, again. So when we are repeating life in this world, it's like, again, we're reaching for that chappies, that bubble gum that's out of sweetness, or that sugar cane and we're still trying to get sweetness out of it. So we are given a chance to gradually come to the frustration or the realization that this world is temporary, I'm eternal. I want to enjoy, but I want to enjoy love and devotion and the free world. Therefore, we choose like Mr. Anderson.
Yeah. Red pill, blue pill.
Red pill, blue pill. Otherwise, it's cozy just to sort of hide behind unhappiness, hide behind illusion, hide behind the masses. How everyone is just living like this. So you think because everyone is living a life that's leading to repeated birth, I should just cozy up there and it won't happen to me. I'm safe. No. Even if you have billions, no one's safe from diseases. No one's safe from death. So human life means how to transcend the conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease. That means becoming spiritually awake even while living in this body.
You're saying the body is temporary, the soul is eternal.
Yes.
Have you seen The Eternals? It's a movie by the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
No.
Please do. There are so many references there to some of your beliefs. There are these beings, I forgot what they are called, that exist within planets that at some point need to awaken. They feed off the energy of the planet and they awaken so that they can create more planets. There is a god figure called Arasham in there. There are references to figures like Gilgamesh from the Greeks, Athena.
It's like really high, big scale reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something
Sure.
before it escapes my mind. Was this idea of gods, of African gods, Greek gods, Hindu gods, it's such a misconception. Because if we understand that we're in one universe, all of us, then just like we're in this country of South Africa, its leaders, there's one president, one minister of this, one minister. So it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, Indian, or colored, whether you're Muslim, Jew, or Hindu. The leaders of this country are the same. Now, the leaders and the controllers of the universe are the same. Different languages are there and names that are given to such
different interpretations,
controllers and gods. And so when we stay in this bubble of Indian gods, African gods, Hindu gods, Greek gods, we are limiting ourselves from understanding and exploring this knowledge of who are the higher controllers, what is the higher reality. So no Hindu gods here. We're not talking about Hindu gods. We're talking about God, by definition, controller of everything. And so if there's some rain god, some sun god, there will be a name for them in most cultures. So accept that we are under the same system. Just like
sun god, Ra, rain god, it's no one it's no mujaji.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes. In the Vedic text, Bambizu Indra. So if we can look into Mayan civilization, the Aztecs, we look into the Egyptians, we look into the Vedic in Africa, and compile, you can find that the deities or the controllers, the departments are the same, but the names differ. Some places even there's a connection, like we spoke about Ram last time we spoke. So Lord Ram had two sons, Lav and Kush. So as part of their leadership control over the planet, because Ram was the emperor, he gave Kush what is now known as Africa. And so you hear of the Kushites in Egypt, that connection. Even this African planet, this continent of Africa, is shaped like a conch shell. It was called Kusha Deep. That's a Sanskrit term, but then over time, people put a twist to a different, to the name according to where they are. Look at Swahili. Swahili is full of Hindi words, Arabic words, and then there's a language there that has formed. It's an amalgamation. So we are not just unique in our small time frame. There's been a long history before us, and there'll be existence after us. But if we zoom in on our spiritual, then we can accept whatever I find myself, wherever I find myself, I can always progress. And so material progress, spiritual progress can both work together. But if you don't put the work on the spiritual, then it's lose-lose. But whatever you are gaining in spiritual growth, that can't be taken from you. That's why some people are born in this life and is a virtuoso, someone has some talent.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense. Mozart at such a young
how
age.
Are you just
Kanjani?
mastering this thing? Abanye banama fears, some phobias. They don't know, why am I afraid of water? They had no incident in this life.
Correct.
So even in those areas, there are books where people have done investigations which show that we are multi-life beings. So this reincarnation is a fact. It's not just, do you believe in it? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Even death, we say someone is gone. So something is gone. Even the ancestor wouldn't exist if this death was one time and it's all finished.
There's a movie, animation, Coco, I think it's called, which touches on, I don't know which Latino community it speaks about. So I don't want to say it's Mexican or Puerto Rican or whatever, but they speak about the 3 deaths. The one being the death of your body. I don't know if it's the death of, let's say maybe your spirit as an example. And then there's the death where no one ever speaks about you anymore, as an example. But those are just some of the concepts that some of us are playing around with now. I don't know if you've heard about this story. I like referencing it, and I apologize. People are probably going to hear it 50 times from me. The Egg by Andy Weir. You've never heard it?
I've never heard of it. You can tell me.
So I'm going to tell the story because I'd like to hear your thoughts, especially in the context of now. Guy wakes up and he sees, I guess, a being. Let's imagine with the light around them. And they're in this space of emptiness. You know, when Neo in the Matrix gets to this white space.
Yeah.
And they look at this being and they're like, what happened? And the being is like, you died. You were in a car accident, you died. What about my wife and my child? Oh, I'm glad that you're being selfless. They fine, they'll be okay. Your marriage wasn't great anyways. It was going to end. But they're okay. Take a walk with me. They take a walk. And this person starts asking questions. Are you God? This being laughs. It's like, sure, I'm God. It's like, okay, so what happens now? Is this heaven? Is this like, oh, no, it's not. What's important is I need to send you back. Why? Not why. I need to send you back, but I'm sending you back. If we're in 2024 now, I'm going to send you back to 1976 to be one of the youth there, because there's going to be you're taking me back in time, Bob. And it's like, sure, but time is, it's an illusion where you come from. It's neither here nor there. It's not linear. So I can take you anywhere. And I'm sending you back as a woman, as a girl. As a girl. So reincarnation, the Buddhists, they were right. Sure, if you want to say that, they were right as well. And in that conversation, the conclusion from the being speaking to this person is them saying, because this person asks about, this is important. What if I bump into myself in the past? And the being is like, oh no, that happens quite a lot. It's like, what do you mean? Won't that be weird? And this being says, no, but every person is you. What do you mean? I've been sending you back and forth every time you die to go back and be different versions of yourself. So every time you've bumped into someone, that has been an iteration of you. And it's like, so even the worst people, the rapists, the murderers, the Hitlers, all of that is you. And this person asks, why? And this being says, where I come from, they are more like me. But you need to reach a level of maturity to become like me. So I need to keep sending you back for as long as it takes, centuries, millennia, until you mature, until you go back and you are ready. And then once you're ready, I can take you to where our people are. And then you will be ready to become me. And this person's like, so where am I going? Or where am I? And this being is like, you're in an egg. And when you're ready, it will hatch and you will grow. I'm raising this in the context of reincarnation, in the concept of soul and spirit, and us being inside of each and every person, of us being a representation of a being or a creator. And then the idea that some of us who feel like we have a level of consciousness as opposed to so many other human beings that feel like zombies, where I cannot fathom, why did my parents not have this knowledge? I can't be the first one. I cannot accept that. Why am I the first one to encounter this type of, where has everyone been? And when I do my research, you realize in different parts of the world, there's been knowledge like this for years, but why did it never meet my forefathers? And is it possible that maybe people like you are an incarnation of maybe myself or of others that are almost at that level of maturity where we'll call it a guru today, highest form of human enlightenment, but you almost at the cusp of turning into a God, a being, where your consciousness not only allows you to take control of your mind, but allows you to take control of other people's minds and control them to certain ends, to a point where you can control things that are beyond humanly. And you can read like animals that are going to dogs will lie down, birds will start going crazy, that the rain is coming. How do you know that? How can you feel that? You can feel energy and electricity, and you can connect in a level where you're like, I am alive in what you're seeing, but I'm also not here, because I can drift into parallel universes without psychedelics. I can go to certain places and I can read you and I can read energy. Is that the whole journey of what we're going through? That journey from egg to human to God? And some of us are just further in the journey than others. And our work is to ignite as many people as possible, because maybe it's not just about me. It's about how many iterations of myself I can, like a candle, light. Because when my temporary dies, my spirit will be so much more, because I lit so many, so that by the time I go back, there are so many more of me to light so many more.
Yeah, this ties back to something I mentioned earlier of inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference. So God is always God, and his energies are always his energies. So the energy is like the drop of the ocean. If God is the ocean, we are the drop. So when you study the drop of the ocean, it has the same qualities as the ocean. You can understand the chemical composition of the ocean. But the ocean is always much greater in quantity than the drop. So the individual's soul is never God. And it's not that he at some point will become God. He's always a part of the whole. The oneness that comes is that when there's an alignment of desire and there's a cooperation, then it's very enticing to feel like at some point I'll be the all-knowing, all-powerful.
That's my journey, boy. That's going to be me one day.
Yeah, but it's a situation where what is correct is that there is that evolution that needs to take place. You know, I was listening to the story, the egg. In one sense, the universe is like this big egg where we're trapped. Although it's such a huge place, still you cannot just run out of this universe. And then also, these bodies are like another house that we're kind of stuck in. You don't just leave it whenever you want. And the evolution of consciousness, yes, we are being brought back again and again to learn and to evolve. And so sometimes some souls have had enough study and exposure that some concepts and ways of living are easy for them. They just take them. Others are still much more in the fear level. They don't want to explore far from home.
They are in their infancy. They are still children of sorts.
So the self-realization is when you see yourself as the eternal being, and you can see the supreme being, and you can rejoin the eternal beings of the eternal world. Still, the individuals remain. It's almost like you see a green bird, it flies into a green tree. So it seems like the bird has merged with that tree. But if you go in there, you'll find that the bird retains its individual existence. It's just that it's now within that whole green tree. Even the river, it may flow into the ocean. It seems to have merged with the ocean, but each molecule of H2O remains unique. It doesn't become like one blob. All of it exists. So we're simultaneously one with God and also different at the same time. We're one with God because we're eternal like him, and in our pure state, we're full of knowledge and bliss like him, but we are not carrying the same potency as God. And that's where love flows between the Supreme and his part and parcel. You could say God creates this variety for his enjoyment. So he doesn't have love for himself, but then when we voluntarily decide to love, then there's a pleasure in that. When we don't want, then we have this place to just rebel and do our own thing. But it's created in such a way that it's difficult. You start asking the questions, Mara, who made this place? Why am I suffering? Why should I go through all of these things? And when you have those questions, then again, oh, no, it's temporary, my king. Even this death you're feeling is not you, because the soul can't be cut, can't be dried, can't be burnt. It's happening to the gross thing. So it's a wonderful network where our free will is being given a chance. Come and do what you want here. And sooner or later you realize, no, I'm happy when I cooperate. Like a child. Sometimes they think, I'm leaving. And then the parent says, okay, go. And they pack their little bag and they're looking and no one's stopping me here. And they may go outside and then discover, no, actually I was happier under the shelter of my parents.
Yeah.
But the good parent will give them a chance to explore. Go.
The prodigal son.
Prodigal son type of vibe, yeah. But you will find schools like you have raised who are teaching in the East is called Advaita philosophy, oneness. Their goal is to become one with that supreme source. But when you study and analyze in terms of pleasure, where is the greatest joy? Do you want to be eternally just merged into this ubiquitous energy, or do you want to enjoy variety where there's eating, sleeping, mating, there's fruits, there's garlands, there's service, there's interaction. So feelings are flowing eternally. Love is being experienced than just merging into some eternal holiday. Oh, I'm free. The thing is that it is scary. Personalism is scary because our experiences here with people are such that, hey, people can do you wrong, man. And so when we imagine eternal personalism, we fear that it will be the same violence that we've experienced here. But in fact, the spiritual realm, what we hanker for in terms of unconditional love, deep friendship, commitment, trust, exists already. Here it's just that it is adulterated. That's why we still want it. But we can't get it here. We can get it when we upgrade. So yes, like that story you were telling, I can really resonate with the being saying again and again until you are ready. Then you can join that world where I am, where people like me exist. But for now, until you are ready, we'll give you your chance to do what you want. Choice. You have to come up to some level of maturity.
We may have covered this already. Why do we need the Vedas? What are the implications of karma? The 4 pillars of freedom and bondage and the power mantras.
So we'll just do implications of karma and the 4 pillars. We would say karma in this instance means activity. Whatever you do comes back to you.
Yeah.
So we have to understand then the law of this place we live in. What are the laws of nature so that we don't violate them and then suffer consequences of violating the laws.
I wanted to make this reference, sorry. The movie Mother, Darren Aronofsky, with Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence, speaks about Mother Nature that you spoke about earlier, upsetting Mother Nature to a point where she eventually retaliates in a certain way. Sorry.
True.
Please continue. Speaking about karma.
Yes, so karma would just mean that when we know how to live legally in a country, then we avoid police and jail and fines. So similarly, this universe has its laws. If you know those laws, then you live legally and you don't get fines and jails and bad reactions. And then these 4 pillars of freedom are discussed in terms of what are the violations that, if avoided, one has a much more free reign to live. So gambling, which now is called gaming, just so that, it's not so harmful sounding. So gambling,
They remove the B and the L.
yeah,
Same words. They're just like, hey, it's too many letters. Susu
really
Pino L,
smart.
baba.
Yeah. So that takes away truthfulness in a person. That is a pillar of virtue. Intoxication takes away cleanliness. Well, intoxication takes out austerity, meaning the will to take up difficulty for the sake of making spiritual advancement. It's like Mautagi, where even to cook a meal for yourself is just. So intoxication weakens the will to strive for higher. And then this illicit sex takes away internal cleanliness and also external cleanliness if one's implicated. And then this eating of the flesh of other living beings, it takes away mercy, compassion.
That's number 4.
That's number 4.
We're not supposed to eat meat, baba.
So gambling, intoxication, illicit sex, and meat eating.
Ay, boy.
So
Until we got there.
I know, I just wanted to spice it up.
Hey.
So everyone can shoot at me. Hey, well, now so better. Yes. Get out of here. But the thing is this, we don't appreciate all laws that even, we buy cars that can go up to 260 in speed. And here they have a camera at 120.
Sure.
So
that has never made sense, by the way.
It's just
to me.
like insane.
You're setting us up for failure.
For failure. So same thing, the taste of this particular meat, that particular meat, we've grown accustomed to it. We like it. We didn't complain. So why are you saying that it has to be regulated? Intoxication, for example. So you can see it's not that all the things that make us feel good are good for us.
Yeah.
We spoke a little bit about sex, that it has to be regulated because consequences around it.
Yeah.
Then now also eating meat, flesh, blood also has to be regulated because there's life that is in those bodies and we have not put it there. So we have no leeway to just take it whenever we want. So things like guns, they have to be regulated because they're dangerous. So like that.
You're saying we shouldn't eat meat?
We're saying that
hey, Baba, I need
there's this, if you have to eat meat, then there's levels of what you could eat. Definitely the cow is number 1 off limit.
Off limit?
Off limit.
Yeah, so Hindu yang empela here because you guys worship cows.
Now, Zulus, Xhosas, the people of the Maasai, everywhere.
Worship cows.
Cows.
You spoke about this and you said cows are our second mothers because they feed us beyond breastfeeding.
Yeah. So this...
With their milk.
Yeah, the cow gives us milk.
Not the meat.
The bull, yes. See, now, think about the cow, for example. While she's alive, from her milk, you can get your yogurt, you can get your cheese, you can get your ghee, so many products from her milk.
Amasi, did you mention amasi?
You can get amasi. And then this personality who gives you all these products, her cow dung, we used it in the house.
Sure.
It's antiseptic. Even the urine is also proven to be good and antiseptic.
The urine.
The
cow dung we also dry out for also creating fires.
Fire, yes. Even the horns can be used when she dies. Even the skin can be used for so many things. So she's giving you all of these and you reward her by cutting her throat.
But we have to eat the meat as well. Because we must use the whole thing. The horns, jobush, or the skin.
Yes.
We can't throw away the meat, Baba.
So the meat, yes, if you want to eat,
biltong,
then you would have to eat her when she leaves on her own.
When it's tough meat, stewing beef. No, we want the soft ones, Baba.
So what these days, all glory to technology for this point, is that if the thing is the taste that we want, so that we have no problem with you liking a taste. If you can get that taste without killing the animal, those alternatives should be taken. It's not easy because we're raised like that. And in our consciousness, when you're doing well, then the plate is full of meat.
Have to.
Yeah. But then on a higher level of existence, these are the sources of bondage, because this is creating an envy of life. You know, like you see an ant crawling here, immediately bang. Umangale, how is this ant so dangerous that you must smash it and kill it?
Yeah.
That's why even for your cell phone, someone can just take your life, because we've ingested the energy of death, of fear, of horror that these animals go through when they're being killed. It's taken into the system of man, therefore anger issues like this. But these things one can only experience if they take a gap. Therefore, we spoke about regulation. So in proper cultures, we didn't eat like we go butchery and every day you stock your fridge with meat. It was eaten at certain intervals. Then in that way, you can appreciate the impact it has on your system. But if it's a daily thing, we don't even feel the impact of it. You know, it's like someone just coming out of one relationship and jumping into another. They don't get to experience what it means to be not connected in that way. So we have to try certain things to help our lives improve. And this one suggestion also, if you can regulate your beef and try to even move away from it, you will find a great revolution in consciousness in your heart. But we are better when people think.
No, but the meat one touches me. When you speak about alcohol, because I don't drink, I was quiet. Because I don't gamble, I was quiet. Hey, the one that touches me now.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should shut this down. We've been going on for a while. We haven't touched on the power mantras. And one of the major comments that was raised, it kept getting raised, and I don't know if it's just a word or a term that I don't know. Sanatana Dharma or Dharma.
Yes.
Sanskrit for eternal religion, something that is ancient and never dies. It is a way of life based on the Vedas of Bharatvarsha, written by the great rishis. The Upanishads state that everything in the universe is subject to change, decay, and death, including our thoughts. A lot of people spoke about this, and I don't know if they were speaking about it as Hinduism or it's something else that is meant to be a religion, because they say they practice and they believe this. And then the power mantras. This is how we close it off.
All right. Yes, Sanatana Dharma. So the word Sanatan means eternal. Dharma meaning codes, duties, sometimes translated as religion, a way of life that supports the eternal. We spoke that the spirit, the soul is eternal.
Yeah.
So the codes around living based on the ethics of the soul. So because the word Hinduism was sort of imposed on the people of that Indus Valley.
Sure.
So now people are hip to it and conscious to it, that they generally don't want to be referred to as Hindus. Some accept it. They prefer to call this culture of the Vedas Sanatana Dharma.
Is that almost the decolonized term?
Yes.
To say Hinduism is just like China is what English people call it. But that's not what they call it there.
Yes.
And Sanatan Dharma is actually the name of this belief system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so it's full of, the literature there is full of what we call mantras. Mantras, 2 words. Mana means the mind, tra means to free. So sound that frees the mind from its absorption in the temporary. So that wisdom was generally sung. So you find these mantras are recited, you know, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So many of them are sung, like Bhagavad Gita. Gita means song. So the use of sound to liberate the consciousness from its identification with the body and mind is a very powerful technology. And so in my personal life, last 22 years, I'm chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Simple mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So people keep beats like a rosary. You can do 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And what happens there is that because the sound is spiritual, it clears the conditioning that is there within the heart, this thinking I'm this car, I'm this body, or I'm the software, the mind, like that. And it helps us to realize our spiritual nature, and also mantras are vehicles with which consciousness is set free. Because anytime you chant whatever, recite those mantras, you are creating the vibration that those mantras, the names contained in those mantras. It's almost like you're creating a spiritual bubble within this material world. Yeah. So
mantra is also part of Sanskrit.
yes.
That's beautiful, because people do have mantras, affirmations.
Yes, that's another
I'm
word,
beautiful,
right?
I'm great,
Yeah.
I will succeed, those kind of things.
Yes, it's also coming out of this. So embracing this Vedic wisdom as a great library for humanity.
Yeah.
This is some closing words I would say, that look into it.
You're open to people visiting your ashram in Melville. I haven't visited, by the way, and that's on me. I need to fix that soon.
Yeah, we're open to it, and but we do sort of screen people.
Ow.
We'll do.
Argentinian filterisha, but might not qualify.
The thing is, if you go into any space, then we have to see if you're willing to live within the etiquettes of that space.
A spiritual hermitage or a monastery.
Yes.
In Indian religions, an ashram.
But people can always visit for our programs that we have.
Yeah.
And then if they want to stay with us a little bit, then there's a vetting system.
Okay. So we can visit, like visiting a museum, ask questions, and then if it sounds cool, then you can be vetted and see if you can stay.
Yeah.
Savi, I don't know if there's anything else you want to close with. This is the end of today's episode. Anything else you want to say?
Let's stay in touch. Whoever wants to be in touch with me, my handle is Savia the Monk, Savya the Monk, and there's plenty literature that people can come and get. And as my mentor said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
Come on,
none but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. None of them can stop time. We're eternal. So we shouldn't be threatened by death. But because we identify with this body, we are always feeling threatened by death. So let us emancipate ourselves. Engage me. I'm your servant.
Spusiso, a blessing. Savia the Monk, thank you very much for joining us on the Penuel Show. I'm looking forward to unpacking more layers of this as we go on. I think the onus is going to be on me to go and research some of the Vedas, some of the stories, so that it can be a bit more engaging and go a bit deeper. Because this is still, for people that don't know, still almost an introduction to everything. And apparently there's so much more.
Thank you, Pen.
Thanks, brother.